They buy here cause it's the cheapest, because we abuse our labor, keep them part-time working 40 plus a week, no health insurance, and it gets better. We can buy in bulk from China, make $2 off for every penny spent in sweatshops or by the judge, jury, politics.
This is Steve Zeltzer with Workweek and Pacifica, and we're going to cover today the struggle in the Teamsters Union, critical struggle over democracy, over worker rights, over AI, and also the effort by the Teamster leadership, Sean O'Brien, to shut down a rank and file platform, Teamster Link, and how he's using a union-busting law firm to do that. So joining us today is John Palmer, International Vice President of the Teamsters, who ran with Sean O'Brien and a slate, and also Tom Leedham, also a longtime Teamster and since 1977, and also ran against Hoffa in 2006 and was supported by the TDU. Welcome, both of you, to the show.
Thank you, Steve.
So why don't we first start with the recent developments of the effort to close down Teamster Link, which was set up by you, Tom, and other Teamsters. What's that all about, and why is the International Teamsters trying to shut down your platform on the internet?
Yeah, well, thanks. First of all, thanks, Steve, for having me on. About a year ago, myself, Bill Zimmerman, Tim Sylvester, longtime Teamster reformers, officers, all of us have been officers for many years. We set up a website forum, an open forum, and the idea was just to give members an opportunity to voice their opinion on whatever subject related to the Teamsters it might be. And we don't care if they're far left or far right. If they're Teamsters and they have ideas and they have opinions, this is a forum for them to express those views. And we started, like I say, about a year ago, a little over a year, and we slowly, started to gain traction and got more members involved. And as we went, members were posting about, various controversies in the union. The UPS contract campaign was a big topic. But there were a lot of things, a lot of situations in the union that members wanted to expose what's happening. And for example, when the International took credit, when Sean O'Brien took credit for organizing 206,000 new members into the Teamsters, we thought, wait a minute, that just doesn't make sense. And we did a thorough analysis of those numbers and found that it wasn't 206,000 new members, it was more like 250 new members. So we did an expose report on that. And in fact, the International was forced to revise their LM2s to reflect the accurate numbers. Additionally, there were other issues that came up. Various contract campaigns, situations, for example, where the International had made a settlement of a race discrimination case, costing the union $2.9 million. We talked about that on the site. And people, it was just open. People could talk about whatever they wanted to, as long as it was related to the Teamsters. We also set some pretty good rules on how people would, communicate on the site and so forth. And while a lot of people thought, well, you can register anonymously, people don't know who's there. That's actually been a real benefit, because in the Teamsters right now, retaliation is fast and furious. So to have a place where people could anonymously post information without fear of retaliation was extremely important, and it was a really popular concept. And over the last year, we've continued to grow and grow. And finally, around toward the end of January, we received a letter from Fred Zuckerman, the General Secretary Treasurer, claiming that we were in violation of their trademark rights. There was a cease and desist letter to stop Teamster Link. And I have to say, when we got the first letter from Zuckerman, we took it seriously, but we were aware that this had been happening for a long time, that local unions get the same letter when they modify the logo or when they modify the trademark in any way. And so we thought it's a normal, it's just a normal thing. Because we'd seen that before as officers of the union. But then when we got a letter from Nixon Peabody, this notoriously anti-union law firm, they literally brag about their union avoidance programs on their website. And some of the unions that they've challenged are actually the Teamsters. And we got a letter from them on behalf of the International, threatening lawsuits and demanding that we cease and desist and take our site down. Well, we took that very seriously, because if the union is willing to use members' dues to shut down a Teamster free speech website, we cannot match those resources. So when we got that letter from Nixon Peabody, we decided we better go to a plan B. And we started developing tunionlink.org as a new site to take the place of Teamster Link. So it's t-unionlink.org. And we started building that, and we got a second letter from Nixon Peabody, and they told us that they would be sending us an agreement that would resolve the matter. Now, we knew that any document that came from these union busters was not going to be something that we could agree to. So we began to really pour it on and work hard to get a new site in place. And it's a good thing we did, because while they were claiming that they were going to send us an agreement, they weren't doing that at all. What they were doing was they had 4 other lawyers from the firm going to Apple to try to get them to take down our app. They did the same with Google. And they went to Facebook, and Facebook removed our Facebook page. Now, we were fairly new to Facebook. We only had about 1,200 followers. We were just getting started, so it wasn't that big a deal. But we were shocked at their ability to just close down a Facebook page, and that's what they did. So we had talked to 3 lawyers, and so we knew that we were on solid ground as far as our case. But the fact is, they all told us, you've got a winning case, but it's going to cost you a minimum of $100,000 to litigate it. And clearly that's worth 3 retirees. We don't have those kind of resources. So we put T-Union Link in place, and we were able to do that just prior to them getting an injunction to shut us down, which they were unable to do. So we moved everything over to T-Union Link. And I have to say, since then, and since this whole controversy has started, our membership has really grown dramatically. This is an important place for Teamsters to communicate with each other. We think it should be that there should be sites like this, forum sites, open forum sites like this in every labor union. Without it, there's really no way to voice an opinion, to respond to the officers, to respond to policy. So this has been a really important site, and it continues to grow.
Thanks. And John, both you and Tom were active in Teamsters for Democratic Union. Tom ran for president against Hoffa in 2006, and you were actually elected with the Sean O'Brien slate. And TDU was an organization which says it wants democracy and wants the information flow so people know what's going on in the union. Were you shocked, John, about the fact that Sean O'Brien, with apparently the support of TDU, was using a union-busting lawyer to shut down a rank-and-file information site for the Teamsters?
I guess that, when this started, I had seen enough of what Sean and TDU, the form they had taken on. And so to say I was shocked, I would say no. But we got the LM2s recently, and I think it's around $1.6 million that they have spent on these union busters. I mean, that's the core of their business. They do a lot of other things. So it's beyond the pale when you think about rank and file members. And let's just be real right now. Our UPS, one of the biggest problems we're going to face now going forward is automation, and no one's exempt from that. I just saw the article you sent me about trucks, being inevitable, the driverless trucks. So that seems like a much bigger problem to me. I would rather see us allocate $1.6 million to, how do you do mitigation in contracts? How do we, we could, hopefully would have negotiated a language that would allow people with seniority to stay on until that expired. We know that automation is coming, right? But we need to do a really, really good job of mitigating that. And honestly, the one thing that seems like we really ought to be on is, if that machine's taking away our work, we should be the ones that work on that machine. We should be the ones that repair those machines. Those seem really important to me, more important than somebody with a logo and an open forum. So I think the importance of Union Link now, which was Teamster Link, is that unfortunately TDU, which I was a part of for many, many, many years, has decided to sort of just pack up and echo whatever sentiment the current administration throws out there. It was for many, many decades the place where people with dissenting opinions and ideas could feel comfortable. So I think what Tom's doing and the rest of the retirees, Bill and Tim, is really important to our members.
And this issue of, the union busting law firm has actually been used against the Teamsters in Teamster organizing. The idea that you would hire a union busting law firm, and also that's now combined with what's gone on with the IBT and Sean O'Brien inviting Donald Trump to their Teamster headquarters, where he gave a press conference bashing immigrants in the lobby of the Teamsters, and voting to give $45,000 to the Republican National Committee, which apparently is now going to be used for Donald Trump's legal fees. What does that say to Teamsters about what is going on in this union? It seems that the rise of fascism, particularly in this country, the dangers, the racism, racist attacks, the attacks against immigrants, to have any support for somebody who espouses that raises real questions about where the Teamsters are going. Are you concerned about that, Tom?
Well, I'm very concerned about it. In regard to Sean O'Brien in Mar-a-Lago, I just think that's a total embarrassment to the Teamsters, I think to the entire labor movement. There's no doubt that we have a large percentage of union members that support Trump, and clearly that's their right to do so. When you look at labor issues, though, if you look at just exclusively on labor issues, I don't think anyone would say that Trump has been pro-union ever in his existence. Has he been pro-union? And we have a responsibility to educate members on who helps unions and who hurts unions. We can't just govern our union by Gallup poll. That doesn't work. We have a responsibility where, as officers of the union, we know who operates in our best interest, which of the candidates is operating in our best interest. And that's what we need to focus on. And we need to make sure that every union member, every Teamster knows who's on our side and who isn't. And that's what we should be focusing our energy on, so that they make the right decisions, and decisions that benefit them and their families.
And John, what do you think about where the direction of the Teamsters is going, and the support for Trump and the Republican Party giving $45,000? I don't know if they've given $45,000 to the Democrats, but giving $45,000 to the Republican National Committee is quite a statement, considering the Republican National Committee has a history of anti-unionism, right to work all over this country, long history of attacking unions and democratic rights of union members.
Laura Trump, right? Do you have to say anything else? She's been very clear about where that money's going to go. The $45,000, a portion of it apparently is going to go to help pay off his legal bills. I understand the idea that we have to work with both parties, and that's our fund is called DRIVE, Democratic, Republican, Independent Voter Education. But in mass, or on large, the Democrats have furthered legislation that benefit unions. They haven't stuffed the labor board with literally union busting firms. heads of union busting firms, and the litany of really bad decisions we got out of the board, lack of in the other areas like DOL and other places as well. Our members need to be reminded, as Tom said, everybody has a right to vote, but our job is not to remain in office by appeasing people. And I really think this is more of an appeasement move than it is, dealing with the quality of the candidates. And at this moment, Donald Trump is maybe the worst president that in my lifetime as far as labor goes. I mean, Reagan was pretty horrible with what he did when he fired the air traffic controllers. That was a pretty horrible move. But all in all, I think Donald Trump has been terrible for working men and women. Ask folks that worked on his buildings that never got paid. So yeah, I'm disappointed. We were poised to be this militant new. Tom was part of the Kerry administration. I was blessed to work in that administration too. And it did take on some militancy. It took on UPS. We struck UPS. We struck the freight companies. We won large gains, and pretty much everything that was won then has been undone over the period since Ron Kerry's left office. So we need a direction away from business unionism, but the business model, corporate unions they're not in the best interest of their members.
Well, this issue of AI automation, that's one of the issues in the UPS contract. And at a rally in September of last year, Sean O'Brien said that they'd stopped AI and robots at UPS.
Recently, we took on a colossal giant, UPS, parcel delivery company. What people don't know is that they're also a technological company. A technological company that, if they were given the opportunity, would try to destroy as many jobs as possible. We were able to utilize our 1.3 million members. We were able to utilize our 340,000 members employed at UPS and to fight and protect against autonomous vehicles, protect against artificial intelligence, to ensure that our members employed at UPS had a future that was not going to be replaced by artificial intelligence and robots.
That's a statement he made at that rally. First of all, the idea that you can start AI and robots anywhere in the world is highly dubious. I mean, it's technology. The question is, who's going to benefit from the technology? Is it going to be workers or the billionaires? And that's really the battle that's going on. Tom, the contract of UPS was welcomed by TDU and the Teamster leadership as a great contract, yet apparently there are thousands and thousands of workers, part-time workers all over the country who are getting laid off. And there apparently is no fight back, no announcement to have any kind of struggle against UPS to defend these workers. And also it's taking place in Portland, where you're based. Where do you see this going? Because automation, AI is being used by these companies, the billionaires, to really get rid of workers throughout the world.
Well, I think what we're seeing now is something that's been in the works for a very long time. And UPS has been dedicated to automation. They have put more money into automated trucks than probably any other corporation. They've done research and development for decades on automation in their plants. This contract gives them 5 years to implement the changes that they've been planning for some time. And the language, the technology language that when it was negotiated was hailed as a big victory, the language itself says the company cannot use robots. I'm paraphrasing, but they can't use robots. They can't use AI. They can't use automation unless they desire to do so. And if they desire to do so, they have to give the union notice of 45 days. The language in the new agreement, is really simply a process for eliminating Teamster jobs. The language ends in effects bargaining. All roads lead to effects bargaining. And effects bargaining, as most people know, that's severance. That's what you're talking about. Plant closure, you're talking about severance, et cetera. These layoffs that are occurring now at UPS, those aren't just layoffs based on volume. The volume may be down now because of seasonality or the results of the changes after COVID and so forth. So volume may be down, but these are closures. These aren't just layoffs. They're closing the day store. That's a permanent closure. And the reason that they're announcing these closures is because of the WARN Act. They have to announce these in advance because they're not going to open again. And where's the work going? It's going to automated facilities that are popping up all over the US. They've announced several just since the contract was ratified. So this work is being shifted to automated facilities. We're seeing more and more of that. And that's going to continue through the life of this agreement based on what language was negotiated.
And should there be a fight back, or should people just accept that? That's life, and that's the agreement, and there's nothing that can be done about it. Apparently, that's what the Teamster officials are saying who support O'Brien, that they have to accept it and they can't mobilize, they can't make it a community issue. Basically, just take it.
No, I just think that's unacceptable. I mean, you know, we have a responsibility to fight for our members' interests, and those interests don't end when a contract gets ratified.
John?
Oh, I agree. I agree. And you know what we're seeing with some groups, I think one of them's called ITOC, young man from Portland's putting that together, is the sort of grassroots rank and file fight that you know, TDU's always been about, and the union clearly should be about. I think you're correct in the idea that, you know, you can't stop progress, but you have to be smart about it. We had leverage. We had incredible leverage because we were approaching a contract, and we had that leverage of the threat of a strike. We chose not to do that, but I think we missed a real good opportunity to deal with technology. And how do we as a union deal with it? How do we help our members? How do we overcome this? And I don't think there was a lot put into that. You know, it's nice that people got big raises. Carol Tummay's been very public about how quickly by August they're going to be out from under the, I don't want to use the term burden, but the initial cost. Year one of this contract was costly to UPS. The next 4 years are, you know, very profitable years for them, and they have a very aggressive plan. And as much as 80% of the work done in the buildings at some point by automation. And so when you think about the majority of the workforce at the Teamsters at UPS are part-timers. So you're going to take all these people and, you know, eventually they'll no longer, from a business perspective, if you want to use that, be paying dues. They're going to be out of work. And many of these people pay into our pension funds. So you know, I think there needed to be a much longer term view taken to this, because you know, it's important. Part-timers in some of these areas don't work long enough to vest in the fund. So they have, for lack of a better term, they've been cash cows for pension funds to well, all these great benefits. Serious problem.
And 100,000 workers leaving UPS would really bring about a major decline in the income for the pension fund. So wouldn't that threaten the regular UPS workers if with that kind of cutback and people paying into the pension plans? The robots don't pay into any pension plan for workers. So that seems like the long range vitality or the situation of their pension fund is going to be undermined by these mass layoffs. Tom?
Well, the UPS contract, I mean, there are lots of little landmines, big landmines spread out throughout the contract. It may have eliminated tiers with the 22/4s gone, but it created tiers among the part-time class as well. The pension itself, the largest Teamster pension plan is the Western Teamster plan. It's one of the largest, it's probably the largest private sector pension fund in the country. That took a serious hit because only half the amount of money that was negotiated in the last 3 Hoffa contracts is now available in this contract. Half the amount of money that was negotiated, where before it was $1 per hour for health and welfare and pension. Now that's been reduced to 50 cents. So that's a 50-cent cut. That really means that that there won't be new money going into those funds. The contribution rates will remain essentially the same over the life of the agreement. That hasn't happened before in the UPS contract. There were always, every year, there were always increases in the contribution levels in every contract. So someone that retiring 5 years from now, essentially their pension was negotiated by Hoffa and Carey, because there's going to be no new money in it from from the Oz administration. So that was completely ignored in the ratification process. But keep in mind, our members were just swamped with information from PR firms, Berlin Rosen. I think they spent $3 million to get this contract sold to the membership, which is outrageous to me. The fact that we're selling contracts, we're going out there and trying to persuade people to vote for. We should be presenting contracts. The members should make their decision. We shouldn't be spending millions of dues money. These are all dues dollars we're talking about. We don't manufacture refrigerators in the Teamsters. All the money comes from dues. So when we spend, 1.5 to union busting law firms to shut down a Teamster free speech site, or when we spend $3 million to sell a UPS contract that should not have been sold, that's dues money that's running those campaigns. And I just think it's outrageous that that's how we're spending our dues money these days, is on union busting law firms and supporting a contract from UPS, who should be able to bargain a contract that's acceptable to the membership without a big PR campaign.
And another issue that's taken place is some of the workers, the staff, wanted to organize a union, the News Guild, and apparently they've been fired. There are a number of firings going on. They're apparently liquidating a large part of the staff, which has the institutional knowledge of the Teamsters. What does that mean in relationship to organizing at Amazon? Because when O'Brien was running, he said he was going to organize Amazon, which needs to be organized, and FedEx as well. They're competitors, non-union competitors with the Teamsters Union. What does this layoff of staff mean in the Teamsters Union as far as the future of organizing, which is critical to the labor movement?
Well, let's just, if we can, let's just go back to day one, when the O'Brien administration took office. The day they took office, between 150 and 180 staffers were terminated by email. There was no severance offered. There was no health care coverage going forward. They cut it off immediately. No pension going forward. Those contributions were cut immediately. So they just severed those ties by email. Now 13 people challenged that because under a racial discrimination case that ultimately the union agreed to settle for $2.9 million. And it's interesting that TDU's response on those mass terminations was, well, every administration changes policymakers, division directors, et cetera. Well, that's true. Of course, a new administration coming in, they're going to change their division directors, policymakers, but we don't have 150 policymakers at the IBT. There aren't 150 or 180 division directors at the IBT. These were staffers. These were clericals. These were researchers. These were people that day in, day out, without any politics involved, did their jobs. And we have lost that institutional knowledge. Those senior people that really understood how the union operates. So this happened from day one. And the organizers and that whole episode is just the latest chapter.
And John, what is the future of the Teamsters if they're getting rid of large numbers of their staff? They're employing a union busting firm, and apparently there's no real effort to organize Amazon or FedEx, which was a priority for Sean O'Brien and their slate. They said they were going to organize it.
It's really disappointing when you think about. I know they've they're going after this group in Southern California of terminated contractors, and there's some ULPs filed around that. But as far as a big, broad strategy, I think some of the problem that we're encountering is, number one, you're right. Many of those folks that were either let go or later just decided to leave because of the poor condition of their treatment inside the organizing department after O'Brien took over. Those people had decades of experience. I started organizing with Ron Carey in the early part of his administration, and organized for almost all of Hoffa's administration. And you can't. You just can't replace that amount of experience, the depth of knowledge that people get But to the Amazon issue, I think the idea that somehow that we, the Teamsters, need to do our own little thing over here against the most powerful, richest corporation in the world is, I'm going to say this, naive to say the least. It is going to take a massive effort of not just organized labor. Every labor union that has a stake and touches Amazon in some way should be involved in this. Every religious group that believes in social justice, every social justice group, every environmental group. This needs to be something done on a scale that we haven't seen before. And I honestly believe, and people always talk about us being socialists and communists and anti-capitalism, but capitalism's wonderful in the sense that it creates competition, but it also needs brakes and levers to make sure that it doesn't damage people in the process, because at the end of the day, the greed of these corporations like Amazon is pushing people out of the working class. It's pushing them out of healthcare. It's taking away their inheritances. People get sick, they lose their homes. These aren't off the wall concepts. These are quality of life issues that everybody shouldn't have to feel threatened to lose in their. We just want to, retire, grow old, have health care, and then hopefully enjoy what time we have left on the planet and leave something for our kids. And that I tie that directly to the threat of Amazon. That's the growth of Amazon is going to be, exponentially dangerous to working men and women, and AI too. I mean, we're asking for people, for corporations to have some sense of social responsibility towards people in this country, and it's all about profit. If no one's making any money, how are you going to fund your greed? But anyway, that's sort of where I'm at with this.
I just think it's interesting. Amazon, as John pointed out, Amazon is huge. That's going to take everybody working together. Amazon spent $3.1 million last year on union busters. The IBT spent over 1.5 million on union busters. I think that's an interesting statistic.
And the history of the Teamsters, and mass organizing, not just the Teamsters, the San Francisco General Strike in 34, the Minneapolis Teamster General Strike in 34, those mass movements were brought together the entire working class to organize. And in the Teamster Minneapolis strikes are important in American labor history, yet it seems the Teamster leadership is not really interested in even talking about the real history in the 30s and how workers were organized in Minneapolis and other places through mass mobilization and through general strikes. Is there a reason for that?
One of the things, again, when we ran and I was asked to run with these folks, I did make the comment to both Sean and Fred, who's the number two, that I wasn't interested in just changing the names on the back of the chairs. And that, to me, that's what's happened. And even worse, I think the PR aspect of what's gone on in our union has just created a scenario where we're not doing the core, militancy has to be a part of the labor movement. Our downfall is our own success, right? We've got folks who have prospered into a place where they're comfortable, and they don't understand that, like the full-timer thinks, well, the part-timer's part-time, that's their fault, they need to go get another job. As a trade unionist, I'm totally offended by that. And if we don't, change isn't going to come. We talked about this when we were in East Palestine with those wonderful folks that are suffering through so much. The only, when we believe that institutions are going to bail us out, and we fail to work on things collectively as grassroots, union members, community organized, whatever we're doing at the grassroots, that's got to be energized in order to make positive change in this country. No one's going to listen to somebody writing a letter from an organization or a labor union. That's just, writing letters is writing letters. Grassroots action is what's going to change our situations.
There is a tremendous political vacuum in this country. We don't have a labor party. There's no working class party, and people, Teamsters and workers, are fed up with both the Democrats and Republicans. It seems that's a dangerous situation to be in, where there's this political vacuum, which is growing. What about the unions beginning to have their own political party, working class party, with a program for workers. As we learned in East Palestine, these workers are losing their health care because of the Norfolk Southern railroad derailment and the ignition of vinyl chloride. They're poisoned and they're losing their health care. Biden refused to institute the Stafford Act, which would have provided health care for them and allow them to sell their homes so they could leave that poisoned area, and they've got their children there. It sounds like a criminal situation where this company is getting away with basically poisoning people, and they can't even get health care at this point.
No, it's an outrageous situation. These corporations come in and they do the damage, and then they leave town. I mean, they fly in and they fly out, and they make a lot of promises on the way, but rarely keep them. I think the notion of a labor party, I think, is an important one. I don't know how labor can ever get together to work on that. It doesn't seem possible, but I know that there have been efforts. The most recent, I think, is the Working Families Party, which has been growing steadily. They have a big union presence. I think they're on the right side of those issues. But it's not a labor party, and that is what we need.
And the invite by Labor Notes and TDU to go at the Labor Notes convention, there are probably going to be 4,500, maybe 5,000 trade union activists from around the country and internationally. Sean O'Brien has been invited to speak at that conference at the TDU, and also to come to the Labor Notes convention. What does that say about Labor Notes? It seems like, are they listening to what's going on? Are they paying attention to what Sean O'Brien is doing in relationship to Trump, in relationship to hiring this union-busting law firm?
Yeah, if I might say, this is, to me, is the biggest disappointment throughout all of this, is how easily it's been for Sean O'Brien to morph into a reformer. I mean, with a long history, I just don't understand how the left media, media in general, but the left media in particular, which knows better, has just ignored his history and has ignored the current developments. There's absolutely no critical thinking on the left in regard to what's happening at the Teamsters at all. No one questions anything. And going back to the UPS agreement, on our forum site, no one thought there was going to be a strike ever. Right. On Teamster Link, people were saying for 6 months, 8 months in advance, there will not be a strike. Here's why. And that carried right on through to the ratification. And no one wants a strike. However, in 1997, the fallout from the 97 UPS strike was so positive for labor in this country. I mean, it revived a dying labor movement. And if you look at the results of the UAW strike, it's led to organizing at VW in the South. It's led to organizing at Mercedes in the South. I mean, they have parlayed this strike into serious organizing. And I think a lot of people had that in mind for the Teamsters at Amazon, but it never happened. And most people on the inside knew it was never going to happen. What I think is really interesting about Teamster Link, and probably what had the administration so upset about it and still does, is that it's a lot of rank and file Teamsters, very activist members, but it's also quite a few officers that have no place else to go to express their opinion without fear of retribution. Because in the Teamsters right now, if you say something in opposite of what Oz is saying, you are subject to retaliation, serious retaliation. And if you're an officer, they will try to get rid of you. They will try to eliminate any opposition. I think John Palmer is the most obvious example. He's a declared candidate, and they are doing everything in their power to make sure he is not eligible to run. In fact, when he announced his candidacy, the response from O'Brien under his breath, but he said it's all the same, was, if you're eligible. So I think, you know, the example is right there. We know what's happening. We see what's happening. And we understand it. They're afraid of anyone that voices an alternative opinion. And unfortunately, the left media in this country they've just eaten it up hook, line, and sinker. To consider Sean O'Brien a reformer, you have to twist yourself into a pretzel. And that's what TDU has done.
And John, is that true that you're under attack now as well?
Absolutely.
Declared a candidate?
Absolutely. And it started as it really started with my opposition to the UPS agreement and the fact that I saw beyond the money. I do know that, you know, people get comfortable and they also are concerned about, you know, if I go on strike, how long can I stay out before I start missing mortgage payments and, you know, car payments, whatever indebtedness you have children, you got kids in school, all that stuff. But I think, you know, going back to the 90s, people were prepared for strikes. They understood that, you know, every month you need to put a little something back. And we prior to that, we had 3-year contracts. So you were kind of always ready, knowing that it was potentially possible. I think we've had such a long lull through the Hoffa years that people got used to not even talking about it. And you know, speaking out against this contract was just me. I mean, people clearly voted for this contract, right? But I think the reasons I stated, you know, the contracting out of work still continues. The part-timers not getting a fair shake monetarily. Those issues were real, and they didn't address the turnover of part-timers. My belief is that, and I'm saying this is a belief, but you know, they wrote the part-timers off knowing automation was on its way, which I think is pretty callous of somebody who's a labor leader. We get it. You're not going to stop progress, but again, there's a way to mitigate it. And as I continue to speak out against the behaviors of this international union, I've been harangued and, you know, served a letter to that I don't have the right to speak to you, Steve. I think you saw the document. That, you know, all these different people that I've talked to, and some that picked up the quotes elsewhere, they think I have to answer to every one of those, and I'm sorry. You know, I'm proud of my service in the military. I'm proud of all the folks that fought for our right to speak out, and elected leaders and candidates both have a right to speak out, and threatening people. In my case, isn't going to silence me. I get it if you're a staffer or at a local where they might come after you, then I understand. But we shouldn't be in fear of our international union. Our international union is here to support the needs of the locals and the members. Let's get on that. Let's stop paying union busting lawyers. Let's look at the fact that we 1.26 million members now, and you know, if you take the Canadians out of that, we might have 1 million members in the United States. At our zenith, we were 1.8 million members. And right now, more than any time in my lifetime, people want to form unions. And we're firing organizers.
Okay, well, I want to thank you both for joining us. I think that this is an important discussion. I mean, it says really not just for the Teamsters, but all unions, what kind of unions do we need in this country? If you don't have democracy, and workers can't speak out, and unionists in unions can't speak out, are we going to actually be able to change the labor movement to build a strong, active labor movement? Without workers' democracy and democracy in our unions, what future do we have? And I think that this issue in the Teamsters Union is not just for the Teamsters, it's for all workers in this country. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.